Services and Energy Planner at Windham Regional Commission. And we are very happy to be hosting these series of lunchtime energy programs to introduce our energy committees and other residents of our region to some of the services and opportunities that are available to assist with weatherization. And so today we're really excited. We're going to be talking with Becca White of Efficiency Vermont, and also Randy Drury of, Randy, I hope I pronounced that correctly. And he is from 3E Thermal, and he's going to be talking about working with landlords. So today's focus of the program, Becca's going to be talking a little bit about the current initiative that's happening throughout the state of Button Up Vermont. She's also going to be speaking about tips that we can be working with landowners or people who rent apartments who don't necessarily have the chance to make big changes to where they're living, but ways that they can weatherize so that they can still see savings as a renter. And then Randy's going to be speaking more to services that are available for landlords and what they can do to weatherize the properties that they own. So Becca, I'm going to switch over to you.
Sure thing.
This off.
Yeah, I'll start sharing my screen. Let me see if I can, it'll be, oh, here we go. Oops. What happens every time is you open up the screen and then it covers the entire thing. Here we go. So you should be seeing the Step Up to Button Up presentation, if that's correct. Are you seeing that?
Yes, we're seeing that. Thank you, Becca.
Woo! Success. And thanks for that introduction, Margot. And I already see that we've got some Button Up participants who are live as community organizers here today. So thanks to everybody. So I'm just going to go over a bit about the campaign and then dive right into weatherization. And exactly as Margot said it, then talk to you a bit about tips for renters. And then, of course, 3E Thermal will be right after. So got you queued up there, Randy.
Yep.
So Button Up Vermont is a campaign to help Vermonters weatherize, to do education in a grassroots way on weatherization. And it's actually a campaign that has quite a number of partners. Even though I work for Efficiency Vermont as a community engagement manager, the campaign itself spans all these different organizations, some that aren't even yet on this slide. So it's a pretty all-encompassing group, and we're fortunate that all of our regional planning commissions are actually a part of it this year. So shout out to WRC and Margot for taking the bull by the horns and doing one of these with us. So I'm going to talk about the following things, and what is interesting about this year in particular is that since the campaign runs for 3 months, I've started to already see the pickup of some of the conversations we're happening around Button Up as the weeks get colder. So I've got some slides that talk a little bit more about the cold weather, but I did just want to mention to start off with that this goal of weatherization, all of that is just as valuable in the summer as it is in the winter, but I am going to focus on heat loss. So when we talk about buttoning up, we're talking about my favorite analogy, which is the idea of your sweater, your windbreaker, and combining those two to see comfort and savings. And I always say this, but this is the analogy that got me to go like, oh yeah, that's why weatherization matters. Because when you think about insulation, you think about your sweater. And some people kind of start with that place. When you're outside, you're just wearing your big bulky sweater. But if you've ever been outside in a big bulky sweater, you know that that cold air can blow right through the stitching of that sweater. And you need something in addition to that insulating sweater. So that's where air sealing comes into play in your windbreaker. And that removes all the holes so that you don't get that cold air getting in and you don't release the hot air. So combining those two things together on your person when you're outside and in your home is really what buttoning up means. So you button up your windbreaker. And when we talk about buttoning up, there are some important building science components that really matter. So this is what it looks like in a home. As you can see, the air, because of the principle of basically warm air rising, when there are holes or leaks in your home, the hot air actually escapes through those holes. You can see in the picture that cold air coming up and what we call the stack effect. As it comes up, the hot air will escape through the holes in that roof and attic, and you'll continue to draw cold air through the leaks in the basement and lower stories. So that is the stack effect. And then we have insulation. That air movement reduces the effectiveness of that insulation. So even if you have some, you're still feeling that breeze, quote unquote, through your sweater. And some common places that we see leaks, and I like to think that that little circle with the slashes kind of shows us our example of a common leak, but that could be your fan vents, your attic hatches, your chimney, your outlets, doors, windows, basements, any joints or corners in your floor or your walls where those two places meet, that could see some air leakage. So even when we think about insulation, we actually need to also think about air leaks. So when we think about buttoning up, the sweater should always be in contact with that windbreaker. So you want to prioritize insulation in the following areas, kind of that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 listing. And that's where we see the most common leaks. Yeah. So when we think about buttoning up, I've spent some time talking about what buttoning up is, but on top of just the general, like conceptually, why would you want to do that? There's some really tangible impacts that buttoning up your home and weatherizing can have. The first obvious one that we all talk about is saving money. You know, a comprehensive weatherization project can save a household between $500 to $800 per year. And historically, homes have saved about 15% after a project is completed. So even for me, I think about the cost that we saved when we weatherized our home. We did it through the Button Up campaign way back when, 2017. And the difference in what the previous owner's fuel bill was and our fuel bill now, it's night and day. And that savings is something that we invested in the home and adds value to it long term. It also increases comfort. So I'm in my office right now, and this room was not a year-round room prior to us weatherizing. So when I think about comfort, I think about the fact that, as Guy Payne pointed out earlier, I can be in my t-shirt and actually be able to present because I'm a nice, comfortable temperature. And for Vermonters who have that extra 1 or 2 rooms that they don't use, we all know somebody with that. You do not have to live like that. You can button up and take advantage of your entire home throughout the year. The other 2 points are you can save save energy. And for a lot of our energy committee volunteers, this is the piece that really resonates with them. Right now, heating our homes and businesses makes up about 42% of our total energy use as a state, and 78% of homes use fossil fuel for heating. So when we think about how we can save energy and reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, that is a key component for hitting our goals. And that's exactly it, reducing carbon pollution. The less fuel we burn, the fewer pollutants that contribute to climate change. And as of 2015, 28% of Vermont's greenhouse gas emissions came from heating our buildings. So not great, but we can do something about it. And I did just want to spend a little bit of time on that piece because it's so important to when we think about our energy goals as a state. And as someone who interacts quite a bit with policy in my side gig, when I think about reducing carbon pollution, I do hear from Vermonters about, like, what can we do? We're a tiny state, or we are very green. Why does it matter? And when we think about weatherization, reducing carbon pollution has is a big focal point when we think about how to reach our emissions targets. So we're not done yet. So now that you've heard all the great reasons why you should weatherize your home and button up, how do you get started? The first place is if you're an income eligible Vermonter, which means if your income falls at or below 80% of the median income, you're eligible for free weatherization services. So definitely look into that if you think you're eligible. And I'll talk a little bit more about how to find that out in the next slide. The next biggest bang for your buck is comprehensive weatherization. If you work with an EEN home performance Energy Star qualified contractor, you can get the incentives that actually help pay for a weatherization project. And finally, a big focus of the Button Up Vermont campaign this year is doing it ourselves. Do-it-yourself rebates right now are $100. So if you do 3 of the projects of the 6 listed on the Button Up Vermont checklist or at the Efficiency Vermont website, you can actually get $100 back. So pretty cool stuff. And then for the conversation I was just mentioning about income eligible weatherization, there are many opportunities there are many organizations that offer community action support, our community action agencies throughout the state, and we are SEVCA. So if you are familiar with SEVCA as an organization, they're the place that you go in this part of the state to access free weatherization services if you are in an eligible household. So I would contact them if that's what you're thinking about. Then for homeowners or folks who are renters and landlords, accessing, like if you have a mother-in-law suite, for example, homeowners can access the home energy loan, which is a very low interest rate way to finance, in fact, no interest rate financing for certain incomes. You can finance your projects and actually make an affordable transition when you're weatherizing. And we have tons of great partners who do that. And it's not just weatherization that's eligible, it's these other things that you could combine into it. And then I did just want to lift up the do-it-yourself incentive one more time. These are the projects, for example, that you could pick from. Doing 3 of them, you qualify for that $100 incentive. And then the next steps, if you're so engaged in this conversation, you're like, what do I do next? You can reach out to customer support at Efficiency Vermont. We also just officially launched the virtual home energy visits live today. You could schedule those. I'd recommend, if you're wanting a virtual home energy visit and you're watching this presentation, they're scheduling into January of 2021. So if you're really thinking about doing a project now, I would recommend going to either the Efficiency Vermont customer support or that Find a Contractor page. But if you are not sure where to start and you're really thinking long term, I would recommend scheduling a virtual home energy visit. And then we don't have any, I hope we don't have any Burlington residents on the call. Well, maybe, I don't know, you can join too. But if you've made the Zoom trip to the Windham County Regional Planning Commission's webinar and you're from Burlington, you can also call BED. So next, I'm going to talk about some tips for renters. We hear a lot at Efficiency Vermont how frustrating it can be to not have control of your energy, and especially the energy costs in your home or apartment. And we always want to make sure that we can have solutions to reduce those energy costs, even if you don't own your home and you're renting. So get ready for some animations. Some tips that we would offer: if your apartment or house has its own thermostat, you can set the temperature down 7 to 10 degrees for 8 hours a day. For example, like when you're sleeping, or if you happen to be one of those people who does not work from home and you're away, you could set it and forget it in that way. You could also make sure that your light bulbs, your most commonly used lamps, are LED. So that's a way to save your energy costs. A higher quality light that will last longer and save on your utility bills is a key way to save money. You can also remove, this is the one that I did not know about, you can also remove dust buildup on your refrigerator and heating systems. And that will actually help your system perform better, so you're paying less to heat your home or apartment, and it will also improve air quality and safety. So it's kind of a, if you're stuck at home and you're like, oh, I got a gunky refrigerator fan, this is a great opportunity to do a little light cleaning and get in there. In fact, we cleaned out our stove, we cleaned the grease off our hood fan, and I also replaced the light bulb. So you could do two things at once. You could add weather stripping to your windows and doors to help keep drafts out. That'll increase your comfort. You won't feel that draft as you're sitting next to a window. And then what's interesting is a lot of appliances actually have something called idle mode, which continues to draw power even when you're not using it. So if if maybe you're on your computer right now, but your TV actually might be drawing power even though you're not watching it. So it's important to think about having a power strip or to turn off your devices so you're not doing like a phantom draw of power throughout the day. And then finally, you can use curtains or shades to regulate the heat throughout your home. We've actually got some solar shades in our living room, and it makes all the difference. If we close them or open them, we can basically decide the temperature in that room. And you can also have some fun decoration with them too. Let's say you're thinking, okay, those are some great handy tips, Becca, but I need something a little more substantial. So when it comes to weatherization, renters are still eligible for the Weatherization Assistance Program and the Do-It-Yourself rebate. So a rented single-family home can qualify for comprehensive weatherization offers from Efficiency Vermont too. So there's actually, I wouldn't count yourself out yet. I would give us a call and actually see where you can fit in. There is also a building, which we'll hear about later, a building performance program, which helps multi-unit and multi-family residents. And you'll need your landlord's permission to move forward with any of these solutions in many cases. But they would be, for example, they would be responsible for the upfront cost potentially of a project to be able to receive the incentive. So we can help you figure out which solution might work best for your housing situation. So if you're wondering how to connect with your landlord, still give us a call at Efficiency Vermont. And that brings me to the last slide there, which is what I hear a lot from renters and landlords is the assumption that there isn't a program for them. And the truth is there's still work that needs to be done to support renters and landlords, but in a lot of cases, there actually is support out there for you. So if you're thinking about it, please give us a call to get started, and we're happy to help. Every home is unique, and there might be solutions that can save you money, can make you more comfortable, and can reduce your energy usage all at the same time. So that's my whole spiel. And I'm happy to pass the baton over to Randy at 3E Thermal. I feel like I lightning fast did that. I don't know why I was moving so quick.
Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. I was on mute. Thank you, Becca. I appreciate it. You paved the way nicely with some of the information that you provide. And so just for some background, Becca and I have been involved in one other presentation together. So there are some things that I typically would cover that she's covered nicely, and I won't kind of duplicate the effort today. So I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen. We tried this once before everyone was on, and it worked. We're going to see if we can get it to work again. So you guys should see a slide.
I see it.
Yep, it's working great, Randy.
Perfect, perfect. So my name is Randy Drury. I am the program director for 3E Thermal. We are a statewide entity that assists landlords across the state as they're looking at any kind of retrofit project involving the thermal shell or mechanical systems of their in their buildings. We operate in partnership with Efficiency Vermont and the regional weatherization agencies across the state to act as a central communication point, if you will, for the building owners, so that they don't have to go to 5 different people for the same project and navigate the complexities of the various efficiency programs that are available. So I'm gonna start off by showing a few slides of actual buildings, projects that we've been involved in, some things that might be very common on folks' buildings, and some of the stuff that they may be dealing with that they might not know how to address, and go from there. So we're just going to kind of skip through the first few. Energy that you pay for moves through your building assembly in a various ways. Becca's slide showed the stack effect and how that heated air might be pushed to the outside through the pressure differential between interior and exterior within the buildings. Things like this area here, where we've got abnormal snow melt within the roof, skylight areas that then produce snow melt and ice damming. Here's another photo where, as an energy auditor, when you drive up to a building and you see things like these monstrous ice dams coming off from the building, and then all of the divots within the snow showing an abnormal melt pattern, you get excited. You say, I can help this place. There's plenty of opportunity. As a building owner, you may drive up to your building here and be frustrated. It turns into a nightmare as far as building durability. This picture, for example, shows that the ice on top of the porch roof was actually backing up into the assembly and then dripping out through the interior portion of the ceiling. Building owners may have to employ folks to come to their site and shovel off roofs on a regular basis. Even use sledgehammers I've seen, or axes, where people are up on the roofs just swinging away at the ice. And as we can all imagine, it takes a toll on the building structure. This is a project that we worked on a handful of years ago. We were able to make some recommendations to the owner. They followed our recommendations. And this is a photo. Again, this is early in the season, but it's a photo showing a roof with no abnormal snow melt patterns after the fact. So the efforts that are being made to, whether it's through a button-up program or through a more comprehensive program like 3E Thermal, the regional weatherization assistance programs, they really do work. And if you can imagine the cost savings and the building durability that's addressed through insulating and air sealing your buildings, some of these pictures just go to show the extent that's possible. Becca talked about the stack effect in traditional areas, that the conditioned air from inside your home is being pushed to the outside or being sucked in through a low pressure, typically at the bottom of the up of the building. This is a real world photo. Credit to David Keefe. He's been around a long time. He snapped this photo, and you can see that through the work on this building, they've set up staging and they have tarped off a portion of this building. Well, if you understand what the stack effect is, you can see that the top portion of this building here, or of the tarp anyway, is being pillowed out, and that's because the stack effect is drawing the heated air, the warmer air in this case, and pushing out on the top. You hit kind of a neutral pressure plane here, and then it's being sucked in at the bottom. That's a real good visual on how the stack effect works in all of our buildings. Through air sealing efforts, you're able to minimize the effect of the stack effect and slow the rate of transmission. So how do we improve the building performance? If somebody came to me and they said, hey, look, I've got $1,000 and that's all I've got to spend. You pick the highest priorities, and typically that is air sealing efforts. And the button up program really tries to help building owners and educate them through the process. In multifamily housing, which is 3E Thermal's a little niche, we provide evaluation for building owners and recommendations, and we typically try to address the building in a much more comprehensive manner. So air sealing leaks, adding insulation, controlling ventilation, upgrading heating systems and other mechanical systems to be more efficient, and even in some cases, repairing or replacing windows, doors. This eligibility shows, this happens to be last year's thresholds, but 80% of AMI allows you to be eligible for the statewide weatherization assistance program. 3E Thermal provides those services for multifamily housing that is income eligible. We have a contract with the state of Vermont to facilitate home weatherization assistance program funding for multifamily buildings. We also have a contract with Efficiency Vermont to provide electrical incentives for lighting replacements, appliance replacements, and things like that, along with a funding pool to help buy down the cost of efficiency measures employed within the thermal shell. Our services never cost the owner a dime. You will never, ever get a bill from 3E Thermal for our services. Part of the eligibility process is the same as the low-income weatherization assistance program. So the paperwork is essentially done all as one step. And we offer cash incentives, much like the Home Performance with Energy Star program does for single-family residents. We could do that with multifamily buildings. It's based on the overall scope of work, which we work with the owner to come to an understanding on what's feasible for them financially and what makes sense for their building. We provide unbiased work scope development. At the end of the day, our interest in the project is making the most comprehensive, most energy efficient project that we can for the building owner, and what is feasible for their budget and their building. We provide progress and final review of any work installed on the project. We work with the subcontractors that are hired for the project and help educate them on what the best practices for the installation methods that they're employing on that project. We provide feedback and education for contractors. There are situations where some contractors may be asked to do work that they're not typically accustomed to completing. And we have actually employed folks to provide on-site training for contractors to help make sure that the work that they're doing is up to standard. The program funds that we utilize for the energy efficiency programs that we facilitate are available to not just affordable housing entities, but private landlords as well. So we provide cash reimbursements to incentivize more comprehensive efficiency work. The bigger the project, as far as the more comprehensive work we are able to do, it drives the dollar amount of incentive. The typical process you'll see here, we'll take on an intake form, an application, if you will. We traditionally will meet with the owner on site to discuss what kind of opportunities and what their goals and expectations are for their project. We provide consulting services, and that includes energy auditing, building diagnostics, heat analysis, building heat loads. Once all of that's done, we typically meet with the owner, going over any kind of recommendations for their project that they may have, ballpark budgets, and try to come to an agreement on a path forward that we can go out to subcontractors and have bid. Once those bids are in, we typically evaluate those, make sure that the bids are appropriate for the scope of work that has been pushed out. We meet with the building owners to help them make educated decisions around the estimates that are provided and what historical pricing may be for similar projects. Once we come to an agreement on a path forward, we issue a formal incentive agreement and then provide inspections throughout the whole project. Blower door assistance, infrared imaging, smoke testing, that kind of stuff. We do have some helpful videos on our website that explain this process. And 3ethermal.org is where you can find more information. We have a copy of our application on our website. And I do believe that through this platform, we'll be able to spread out contact information. So if anybody has any further questions, they can reach out through Maria, and we can be put in contact. And that wraps up my slideshow. And I'm going to go ahead and hand the screen back over.
And I'd like to open it up for questions if anybody has questions for either Becca or Randy. Randy, I know I have a question, so maybe while others are thinking.
Sure.
So you mentioned that there was, for your services and working with multifamily buildings, that there's an income eligibility piece to that. And it sounds like, so you mostly work with landlords who their buildings are meeting a certain income eligibility level, right?
Yeah, so it's, 3E Thermal really provides a tiered a service platform, if you will. The first level of service is it mirrors the low-income weatherization assistance program. And that is because we are awarded a contract with the state of Vermont to help facilitate those funds on multifamily projects. So as long as the building itself has tenants in it that are income eligible, and really what it comes down to is typically it's one tenant needs to provide documentation that they are income eligible, and the rest of the units are deemed eligible based on affordable rent thresholds. So we kind of look at both things and try to make it as easy as we possibly can for multifamily building owners to navigate that process. In the past, it was every tenant had to fill out an application and provide proof of their incomes and whatnot. It has evolved into a more manageable process for multifamilies buildings. The next platform of our service is through our partnership with Efficiency Vermont and both electrical and thermal. And that basically, if somebody is eligible for weatherization, they're automatically eligible for all other services. But there's another piece of that we can look at just the rents, and if the project is deemed affordable as based on the rent thresholds for the building, we can then serve them as well. Those partnerships do require owner investment in the building. So on top of the no cost, low income weatherization, we then, anything over and above traditional weatherization, we're able to buy down the cost of further energy savings measures for the project to help the building owners drive deeper and provide a more comprehensive project. So anything that weatherization typically isn't able to cover, let's just say a landlord is going and let's just say they're re-siding their building, and we're there, we're having a conversation with them. They say, oh yeah, I'm gonna re-side my building. Weatherization wouldn't be able to typically add like exterior insulation or anything like that, but it may be the perfect opportunity to get 3E thermal involved, because we can buy down the cost, the incremental cost difference of the insulation where the owner's already planning to re-side. So things like that, mechanical upgrades, recovery ventilation systems, full foundation insulation, stuff like that are outside of the reach of traditional weatherization assistance programs. We're able to provide financial incentive to the building owner to help buy down that cost. Much like the Home Performance with Energy Star program does with the subcontractor base that it has out there for single family residents. They provide a cash incentive for measures that, market rate folks are able to capitalize on or anything like that. It's a similar process. And the same thing with our partnership around electrical incentives. Traditionally, Efficiency Vermont has always designated an energy consultant to these multifamily projects. Well, because we're there on site, instead of having 3 different people have to come evaluate the building and all of that, we've been working for years with those guys to be able to provide the building owner with services all under one umbrella to help make the process the most efficient as we possibly can. Did that answer your question?
It did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
May I kind of piggyback on that for a minute?
Sure.
Jump in, Bill.
Let's say we have a family renting a single dwelling, right? And we don't have a multi-family house, just one house. You've got a tenant in it who can qualify for the low income weatherization. The landlord obviously doesn't qualify. The landlord has no intention of making these kind of external improvements you're talking about, Randy, but the tenant, it's really, you know, they got real weatherization issues in the building. If it's just to pick a number of, you know, $50,000 to weatherize this building, is the landlord going to has to put up the 50, or are there things you guys can do to lower his cost? He's not planning anything. He's really not planning anything. But, you know, through an audit or whatever, the tenant says it's really cold in here, and we can improve this for X dollars. What's the incentive to the landlord to make that happen?
So 3E Thermal really is dedicated to multifamily housing. So unfortunately, with a single family residence, if that call came across my desk, I would put them in contact with the local weatherization agency, because that's going to be the first step that they should take every single time, so that they can get a full-blown audit, blower door assistance, and that low-income weatherization assistance program, assuming that the tenant is income eligible, is going to be able to provide services like, you know, things that they have a technical resource manual that they've established that have certain requirements that they have to meet on each and every job. Things like, you know, the attic has to be completely air sealed. They need to insulate the attic to a minimum of an R49. The wall cavities, if the wall cavities are empty, they're required to fill them. And then like the box sill is something that they're typically required to treat. The building owner is responsible in that case for any health and safety measures that are identified during the audit. So things like making sure that there's a properly operating exhaust fan in the bathrooms, a properly operating heating system, and just water management, both bulk and vapor. So in like crawl spaces and stuff like that, it might be a vapor barrier over an earth floor or something to that effect. Over and above that, so if the owner was not interested in making any investment into the property, that might be where it stops. That being said, with a single family residence like that, I would also let them know about the services that Efficiency Vermont has going, and let them know that there are opportunities to help buy down the cost even on a single family home. And that's part of the effort through, you know, whether it's signing somebody up for a button-up program, whether it's the home performance with Energy Star, anything like that, and putting them in contact with the players to help evaluate, one, what the owner's willing to move forward with, or even entertain the idea of. And the idea is that we provide them with enough information and we educate them well enough to know that they're at least making an informed decision within their property, and not just assuming that they have to take on everything 100% by themselves.
All right, thank you. That was helpful.
I know that some of our energy groups down in our region are particularly interested in trying to figure out how to reach landlords of multifamily properties. This can be sometimes a tricky group to try to get information out to. And I'm wondering if either of you have seen successful models in other parts of the state, or if you have some ideas on what might be the best ways to reach out to landlords to try to get them to know about incentives and opportunities that are available for their buildings. I don't know if you have suggestions on what might be successful or what might be ways that other people have tried.
I'm happy to snag that one, Randy. I know you work directly with folks, but some of the, I would just start by saying that is like the question that we talk about at Efficiency Vermont. and even in the button-up realm, like how do we reach this group of people? Because in many ways, they're such a diverse group and they have differing motives and incentives for why they might want to pursue a project. They might not live in the community. They might be out of state. There's all sorts of different ways that landlords kind of overlap with just not the best group of people to try to get one message to in one platform. So what I found has worked really well, for example, and it kind of started from a bottom up, we do a target communities program in different towns throughout the state. And when we were in St. Johnsbury, I was really impressed. St. Johnsbury actually has a list of landlords or multifamily units that they keep as a community. So we were actually able to directly reach out to that group of people from the list that they had created in St. Johnsbury. So I would say if you've got a community that is already tracking that on a local government level, that's a great place to start. We did a mailer, which was very successful and turned around some visits. The other avenue is some communities have landlord forums. So if you've got a landlord forum in your community, reach out to them, put it as a topic for a meeting they might have. And then finally is really word of mouth. Like it's like if you run in, like the amount of times before COVID-19, I was at an Aubuchon's, and that was when I met the landlord owner, even though I've sent out tons of emails and put press out there. It was like I ran into them at the right time. That kind of interaction is really important. So being a clear presence in your community can help a lot. But I don't know, Randy, if you've got anything that seemed to work well.
I think our best leads come from word of mouth. We do, because of our partnerships with the Regional Weatherization Assistance Program and Efficiency Vermont, a lot of times their outreach generates, traffic through 3E Thermal. And quite honestly, we're a small enough outfit and the funding is not large enough where the word of mouth typically provides enough workflow to absorb the majority of our budget. There are times where, we do stuff like this and we'll get some leads from efforts like this. But the majority of it's really having building owners talk to other building owners and put out the word. That's where we've seen the most success.
It's a hard group.
Yeah, so Becca, I was interested, you mentioned about the St. Johnsbury and the mailing. What type of things did they put in the mailing to landlords?
Yeah, so as a part of the Target Communities program, we were actually offering free multifamily visits. So it was kind of that first step to connect people. And then, for example, pivoting them to 3 Thermal for certain work. Versus like, it was almost like doing a home energy visit, but for those landlords. And that seemed to be a really nice catalyst for them to start to think through their next steps. One of the ways that we were able to get them, and I would have to follow up to figure out if we're still offering this program, and you might even know, Randy, we offered with the visit free faucet aerators, shower heads, and some other kind of like weather stripping pieces. So there were goodies in addition to if you did the visit as like a little bit of a bonus along with lighting. So I'm not sure if we're currently offering that, but I would say that's one tip is if you want to get some landlords trying to give a little goodie is a nice bonus.
Actually, I know Bellows Falls Rockingham was part of the targeted community last year. I'm not. The hard thing is I don't know what kind of traction. I know Brad reached out to many of the landlords. I don't know what the contact. I know there was the initial effort, but I don't know what the outcome was. So
yeah.
that's. But I don't think we have a good list of who the landlords are.
Yeah. I think that's the tough piece too, is you can't tell all the time who's the landlord, and even in certain circumstances the landlord is almost unreachable. It's like they're through a management company. I mean, it can be a whole Pandora's box.
Yeah.
So you just touched on something that I was going to mention is, and the effectiveness of reaching out to property management agencies, and letting, an entity know about what kind of services you provide. It varies depending on what their capacity level is. We've had a good amount of success where we may have met a property management agent on site for one building owner, and then the next thing he's like, oh, I know these people and I know these people.
Yeah.
They might manage 300 units.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to make some outreach like that may be something that's worthwhile.
That's great. Well, we're up on our 1 o'clock end time. And so I just wanted to thank both you, Randy, and you, Becca, from 3E Thermal and Efficiency Vermont for spending time with us and sharing information about your programs and opportunities for renters and landlords. And it's definitely a topic that, as we are progressing as energy committees, that I think several will be interested in hearing about and learning about.
It's like the next step, it feels like, for a lot of groups. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that the information that you've provided will be very helpful. And so for those of you that are on the call, that we will be sending out some follow-up information once the video recording is available, as well as Randy's going to provide some information about 3E Thermal. And I'll be sending out the contact information for both Becca and Randy for Efficiency Vermont and 3E Thermal. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you.